I want to thank Horizon Health for just entrusting me to share with you a few things for this next hour. And we'll go through some different stories. We'll go through some quizzes. We'll be handing out some information. I promise there won't be a test at the end of this. There's nothing that you're going to have to do in that way. But for certain, we're going to talk about elder financial abuse. Just a little background on myself. I've been in the financial services industry for about 29 years, primarily working with community banks and also with financial planners, financial advisors. And I am a mortgage lender, so we support a number of banks throughout the region. What we do is we're a mortgage lender, and that's what I've done. I'm a branch manager, but I do not do specific transactions any longer. I do more education and training and speaking engagements like this. I've been on WCCO radio a number of times with a number of different personalities throughout the years, and just talking about real estate, talking about mortgages, home loans, but in general, what's going on with real estate and all of those kinds of things. So this is my passion. And specifically, the older I get, the more I'm interested in significance. I'm not so much interested in chasing the almighty dollar. More so, I'm interested in significance on how can I help people, how can I pour into them, and that goes from a first-time home buyer today to a last home buyer and that whole process. So today we're going to dive right in to steps to avoid scams. Steps to avoid scams. Just so you know, the Better Business Bureau has a significant amount of information available. So if you at all use the internet or anything like that, there's no shortage of reports available on the most latest scams that are going on out there, and they're significant. There's a meter that goes every month, and it'll tell you what the latest scam is that are being reported out there. So feel free to go to the Better Business Bureau. Also, the Attorney General office in the state of Minnesota has a significant amount of information, and I do have some flyers that I will have available afterwards, but just one is friends and family, beware of imposter scams. And so we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about imposters and different things like that. Fake check scams. I've got a real life story. We're going to talk about that. There's multiple flyers that are available. Can you hear me? Call scam. And I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but we'll talk about that as well. So just know those things are available. Anyone here ever known of anyone, a friend, relative, or even yourself that has experienced some sort of a scam, some sort of a swindle, some sort of, I've got a few hands.
I think all of us. Yeah.
Almost everyone here has been taken in some regard.
But not that we lost money. We knew it was a scam, you know.
So you've been approached.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So a lot of people here have been approached by a scam of some sort. And just so you know, each and every day there's a new one that's dreamt up. It's just what happens out there. So next, I just want to say this, that the reality is each one of us want to know, will I have enough? Will I have enough money to make it to the end? You will if you had this briefcase, right?
If you go to the bathroom.
Yeah. But this is what I don't care what age or who you are, it's will I have enough? Will I have enough? And so why is this so important for you? Because if you do get scammed out of a certain amount of money, you don't have much time left to recover. You only have so much. If a younger person gets scammed into something or pays money or loses money or someone takes some of their money, They have all kinds of time to at least earn it back. It's a loss, but for us, as we age, we have less years to accumulate. We're probably not accumulating so much, we're trying to preserve it. We're trying to conserve it because we want to know, will we have enough? All right, so here's what we're going to do. We want to know how much are you going to know about, do you know about the scams, why you're at risk, the usual suspects, the type of scams, we're going to go through that, protecting yourself and loved ones, what are the signs, what can you look for to help each other, and we'll call you together here loved ones. You can look across the room and say, yes, they're a loved one, and resources to report scams, and all of that goes through that. So I would like you to start to read through some of these questions. You don't have to write them down. You can, but then we'll go through and we'll answer them. Every day for the next 15 years, every day for the next 15 years, there will be 10,000 people a day turning 65 or over. So we have an aging demographic. So we look at this and it says 1 in 5 individuals in the U.S. is age 60 plus, and that's going to grow. That's going to grow. So it's a significant amount of individuals, and 1 in 20 older persons indicate recent financial mistreatment in some way. And I do these seminars all the time, and today I'm not surprised at the hands that I see and the numbers that I see, but the stories themselves are very similar. They're very similar. So hopefully we can give you some insights today as we go through it. 1 in 44 abuse cases ever get reported. So that's something that we're going to talk about today to make sure that you are talking to people and report them. 9% of financial abuse victims must turn to Medicaid after their own funds are stolen because they've drained all of their resources and they have none left. All right, let's go through this quiz a little bit. If there's only a small amount of money involved, it's probably not a scam. True or false? False. No matter how much money is involved, you should always be alert for a scam. A company offering to rescue your home from foreclosure may be running a scam if it says it will stop the foreclosure from taking place, suggests that you transfer ownership of the home to the company so that you can rent or buy the property back from them, advises you to stop talking to your lender, lawyer, or housing counselor, or all of the above.
All of the above.
All of the above. This was more common than you know back in 2006, 7, 8. There were a number of people that their home values went down and they had a particular type of home loan that they weren't even covering the interest, and they ended up upside down, and so foreclosure things were happening to them, and consequently then people were saying, we'll take care of it, you just pay us, and then they never took care of it. Credit-based scams only occur when someone contacts you. Most of those are on the internet. That's correct. It's false. And so be aware of entering any applications online. Be aware of that. Do not do that. So that answer is false. So question 4. One way to tell whether a website offers security to help protect your sensitive data is A, a small yellow lock appears at the bottom of the browser window. B, your friends shop on the website all the time and never have a problem. C, you heard about the website through an online search engine. And D, the security certificate for the site matches the name on the site. So do we know the answer to that one? D. It is D. It is D. And you would want to talk to someone to validate and review that. So if you're doing a lot of internet kinds of things. So 5, if you get an email from a federal government agency such as the IRS or the FDIC asking you to confirm or prove personal financial information, it's always safe. True or false? False. False. Just because something online looks like a government agency does not mean that it is a government agency. The IRS and other government agencies do not contact you online. They do not contact you online. So just be aware of that. And they should never be asking for your personal account information where you enter that online. So the IRS isn't going to ask for your passwords and all of that unless you're actually checking your Social Security, those kinds of things. Social Security is a different thing because you can search online for that. But if it's the IRS isn't going to do some of those kinds of things. Number 6. If you think you've been tricked by an internet scam, you should A, report it to the company whose email address or website was forged. B, change the passwords on all your accounts. C, check your financial statements immediately. All of the above. All of the above. Yep. And 7, you've just realized that your ATM debit card has been lost or stolen. This does happen. To get the maximum legal protection against losses from unauthorized withdrawals, you should notify your bank, A, immediately or as soon as you discover your card is missing, B, within 10 business days, C, before your next statement arrives, even if it's weeks later. Answer is A, immediately. Absolutely. This is common, so don't feel like they're not going to know what to do. They're going to know immediately what to do. They're going to take care of you. So report it immediately because it is common. Something slipped out, fell out. You're at the gas pump, maybe something fell out, maybe somebody ended up with it, that kind of a thing. Okay. Your credit report may suggest that you've been a victim of identity theft if it shows you have a credit card, loan, or lease in your name that you don't have. B, a company you've never tried to do business with has requested a copy of your credit report. C, a home address for you that you never had. Or D, all of the above. And D, all of the above. And it's good to check your credit. It just depends on how much credit you have and use today, those kinds of things, but there's 3 credit repositories, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Yes, sir?
What do you think of that new deal they got you can freeze your credit?
Yeah, so the question is, what do I think about where you can actually freeze your credit? And you can do that. You can put a fraud alert on your credit. That would be the one thing that is possible to do. And that would be only if, in fact, you felt that someone was potentially, it typically is done after the fact. So in other words, when something is stolen or missing, then people typically do a credit freeze, which requires certain authorization or verification of you if new credit is applied for. If new credit is applied for. But yeah, great question. 9, it's safe to enter your personal or financial info on pop-up windows on websites. True or false? That is false. Okay, and 10. The usual suspects who might want to scam me include A, strangers, B, family members, C, caregivers, or all of the above. It is all of the above. And the reality is, the majority of the time in situations that we talk with individuals is the biggest is family members. It really is. There are family circumstances where maybe we don't get along with our kids in some form or fashion, or maybe we have a troubled son or daughter, and they're in trouble and they need help in some way, and often there is something that's happened in a deceptive way, and we'll talk about some of those kinds of things in shortly here. So why do scammers target seniors? Fears. It's scaring elderly that, if you don't do this, this could happen, so you better do it. Frailties of aging. Again, it's just the reality is decision-making processes start not to be as good as they once were. We don't reason as well. We don't fully comprehend what is being talked about as well. And so that's why scammers they'll talk quickly. They'll talk quietly. And they might say, I already said that. No, we already covered that. What part of this don't you get? That's the kind of thing that you want to look out for. Why scammers? Dependence on others. Ultimately, we become more dependent and we need more help. And so there are some people that would say, oh yeah, no, I can do that. I'll take care of that. And then there's all these expectations, and you might have thought they were just trying to be nice, and then they come back and here's the bill. Here's the bill. And isolation. I would say more often than not, isolation is one of those that I want to always talk about, because there's a lot of lonely people out there. There's a lot of lonely people, and they're just waiting for the phone to ring. They haven't talked to anybody in days. Maybe it's been weeks because they can't get out. Maybe someone delivers something to them. But they're just hungry for interaction. And ultimately, the isolation is targeted by scammers because it's just a matter of numbers. They reach out sooner or later, someone's going to fall for it. Sooner or later. So isolation is one of them. So here's a case. Mrs. T's adult son, Tom, can't keep a job and struggles with a drinking problem. He moved in with Mrs. T until he gets back on his feet. All right, coming back home. Mrs. T soon noticed that blank checks were missing from her checkbook, and she saw large ATM withdrawals listed on her bank statement. When she questioned Tom, he said he was just borrowing the money until he found a job. He told his mother that she owed it to him to help. What should she do?
Change accounts to start off with and kick them off.
All right, change accounts, kick him out. That's not, kicking him out may not be very easy to do. Changing accounts could definitely help. And then that would make him mad. But this is real stuff, gang. This is real stuff. This is what happens. And we can all say, well, it doesn't happen in my household, all of that. But it is happening to other people out there. So this is the signs that we want to look for. And maybe you know someone whose son and or daughter and or grandkids have moved in, and you might not know the circumstance, but you might ask, hey, so how's that going? Well, yeah, they're out of work. Okay. She could help Tom find another place to live and ask, certainly, ask other family members for help if there are any, but she should also notify the bank that he is not authorized to access her accounts. And she should call the police. My son is in law enforcement, and there's only so much that law enforcement can do based on whatever the individual wants to do, in relation to that as well. So the usual suspects, who are they? Strangers, certainly. We see that. We see the strangers and all the things that we talked about within that. Family members, those, believe me, the majority is family members in these kinds of circumstances. Caregivers. I heard a story just a few months ago of a caregiver coming into someone's apartment, and the individual that was coming in as a caregiver was taking advantage of this individual, and the neighbor ended up discovering what was taking place, and it was just a tragic, sad scenario. So the caregiver coming in took advantage of this individual, and it was really, really sad in that way. So types of scams. So we're going to start going into those, and there's more than what is on this list. And some of them I'll probably gloss over because they might not be as applicable as others, but there'll definitely be a few that we'll zoom in on with this. But new scams are created every day. So here's the top 10 scams targeting seniors. And it's healthcare, Medicare, health insurance fraud, things of that nature. So be very careful on the healthcare side of things, where people get a hold of your number or they get a hold of all of your information, and the next thing you know, they're making filings for assistance in certain ways because they've got your address, they have your ID number, and it's all going to a different address and you don't even know it, but checks are being cut and those kinds of things. Counterfeit prescription drugs, same kind of a thing. If they get access to that information, these are top scams. Funeral, cemetery scams, prepay, and it might not even be a funeral home in your neighborhood, in your area. And I would say in a community like this, most likely you know who the funeral home is or funeral homes are, and that probably wouldn't be something, but here again, someone that's isolated and lonely and takes a phone call, and they get the phone call and they say, well, yes, we have this, and all you need to do is give us this information and we'll take care of it. Anti-aging products. Anyone ever fall to that here? Yep, we have one that has fallen to that, and you know what? That's probably one of the most common ones I hear. Someone ordered something online, and they kept sending more product, and it was a scam. It was a scam, but that's one of the most common ones. And so we shouldn't feel embarrassed or anything like that. We saw it, we thought it looked great, and it turned out to be an ongoing charge and very difficult to undo. And by the way, anytime anyone wants to talk about this kind of thing, we'll do our best to talk about it as well, and feel free to share if you want to share, at least if it got resolved or to what degree, so you're certainly welcome to do that. Telemarketing types of scams, and it could be a whole host of different things. But notice how so many of these, you just mentioned over the phone, this is a telemarketing thing, internet fraud, pop-up windows when you're surfing, checking things, and all of a sudden something comes up and says your computer has a virus. Your computer has a virus, and so click here and pay this money and you'll be fine and all of that. And here's what I'm going to tell you to do. When that happens, you shut down your computer as fast as you can. Shut it down. Power it off. You can do Control-Alt-Delete. You can do different things. But anytime you get an alert like that that says you know, and it comes usually as this big thing that says, you know, your computer has been hacked, or your computer is subject to virus, you need to update, you need to pay some money, all of those kinds of things. I would be very careful of that. That with your computer, and get some help. Talk to somebody about your computer. There's plenty of places to kind of go to get some updates with regards to, but just talk to a neighbor, talk to somebody young, right? Yeah. Talk to, you know, talk to the high school. Maybe that would be a great thing for the local high school to do, right? Is say, hey, we're going to have a couple of students here. They're going to answer your questions, and what a great way to do some community service. But they know all those kinds of things. They know how to set parameters and all of that because they're on it all the time. Okay, sweepstakes. I'm going to go internet fraud, investment schemes. People wouldn't be calling you to invest money, shouldn't be calling you to invest money, different things like that. Okay, reverse mortgage scams. I do reverse mortgages. I teach a class to this group. I could teach a class on understanding reverse mortgages. Why? Because there's so many misunderstandings and myths about them. And so this is probably dated, in my opinion, based on the regulatory world that is out there and the things and steps that people have to go through to get them. But most of the time we're doing reverse mortgages today for wealth management, not because we have no more money left. We're actually choosing to do a reverse first before we take out other money. And so it's all about financial planning in that realm, but it can be a big difference maker. Just had a call yesterday from a financial planner, 89-year-old individual, that she lives in a condo. She wants to stay in her home. She wants to have in-home health care, different things like that, and the family members are like, well, how are we going to pay for that? They're going to do a reverse mortgage in that. Sweepstakes, lottery scams. Someone says, hey, congratulations, you won X amount of dollars, but we're going to need your bank account information in order to get that money to you. Big scam there. And then this last one, the grandparent scam. This one I hear all the time. I hear this one all the time. And what is it? The grandparent scam is a phone call. It could come at 2 o'clock in the morning. And, Grandma, this is Emily. I need money. I got arrested, or I got whatever, and I need, you know, I got in a car accident. And so we're waking up. We have not, we don't have our wits about us because we've been sleeping, and we hear that, you know, Grandma, and we hear I need help, and the name is a little bit muffled, and you're trying to think of, well, who's your granddaughter or who's your grandson, and you'll say, is this Janie? Yes.
They say this is.
So let's go on to tips to avoid health insurance fraud. So we're going to go through this quite quickly. Never sign blank insurance forms. That would be something that you shouldn't do if you go through and you're trying to fill out some forms or someone's coming to you. Now rest assured, you've got good people here in town. But you know, when we get into bigger communities, all of that, people are door to door or doing different things like that. But you know and trust people. You know, from a local perspective, you might have a few local people that you don't trust, but hopefully, you know, sooner or later, it will come out if they've chosen a product, and then that just simply means you go to another person offering that product, and you ask them, this is what I did, I know this is after the fact, or this is what I'm looking at doing, can you vouch for this or validate it? Is this something that I should or shouldn't be doing based on my circumstance? And remember, financial planning or insurance is going to be probably more of an art than a science, just depending on the needs. All of us see on TV, save X amount of dollars by calling Geico. Our average person saves X amount of dollars. Well, that may very well be true, but what coverage are you actually getting? Is it the coverage that you need? So how does that happen? How do you know what you need? Somebody can say, oh, we're going to save you a few bucks, but it might not be the insurance that you need. So that's where it's asking, you want someone that's going to be a planner, someone that's going to say, all right, here's what we're recommending for you and here's why. And they should be able to articulate that and go through that and look to save you the money there. Never give a blank authorization to a medical provider if it's blank in that realm. Ask what they're going to charge and what you'll be expected to pay out of pocket if need be. Carefully review your insurance explanation of the benefit statement. Call them, call the numbers and get clarification. If you don't understand it, go get help. Go find someone that can do that. Do not do business with door-to-door telephone salespeople for services like especially offering medical equipment things for free. And how are they going to do that? How are they going to offer you the walker chair for free? They're going to offer that because they're going to say, well, just give me your Medicare or Medicaid number, and then we'll submit this for you and go from there. So if it's somebody you don't know, be very, very careful of that, because it's not going to stop there. That's where the fraud is going to come in after that. And just don't give out insurance, Medicare identification to those who provide your medical services if you don't really know them. Let's put it that way. Keep accurate records of your healthcare appointments. Why? Because if the government ever comes back and says, hey, did you go to here, 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 and here, you're going to have record of it that, yes, these were my appointments, or no, that might have been fraudulent. Those were not my appointments. And so it's a way to validate that and to make sure that you're not accused of any sort of fraud. And know if your physician ordered any equipment for you. Just know it. Just find out what's there. Medicare. These are, again, prevention kinds of things as it relates to Medicare. Just be aware of individuals trying to sell you something that you may not need or what have you. And there's senior Medicare patrol. Every state has Medicare, Medicaid resources to go through and to double check with people. So I'm going to move on beyond that because we've talked a lot about those kinds of things. Telemarketing scam, don't buy from an unfamiliar company. Always ask and wait till you receive something in writing. Get it in writing. Good idea to get things in writing. Obtain their name and number. You know what, I never make a decision right away. It sounds like a great opportunity, but I'm not going to make the decision. I know it, and if they say, well, it's only good today, and I just say, well, then I'm just going to have to pass. You know, don't make a decision like it's only good today. That's a bunch of baloney. Always take your time in decisions and talk, and I would say talk to someone else. Talk to someone else. And if someone that you talk to says, well, I don't know, I've heard nothing but terrible things about that, then say, what have you heard? Because I know enough about coffee talk and people sitting around talking and say, oh man, that's the worst thing people could ever do. And specifically, I'll just say it with regards to reverse mortgages is one of them. But I always ask people, well, what did they say? What did they say you shouldn't do? Or why you shouldn't do it? And they can never give an answer. And the number one is that, well, you don't own your home anymore. You give the bank your home. Not true. It's not true. So there's all this misinformation about it. And it's about cash flow. And so I won't go on to that, but I do have another seminar I could do for that. Work at home scams. These are another thing. Why? Because people know that that you're limited on your income, on your cash flow at this stage of the game. And wouldn't it be nice to have another $500 a month? You know, we've got this thing that you can work at home. We'll send you a kit. Just give us your account number. We'll bill your account number, and then you can turn around and make all these calls, and you can have this product, and you can just work right from home. And so always check the Better Business Bureau as it relates to these kinds of things. Verify that that company is legitimate. Do your research as it relates to anything that's going to offer to work at home. Home repair, contractor fraud, same thing. Most common that I see is a storm happens, a tornado, major storm, and roofers come in from all over the place. All over the place, right? Everybody is shaking their heads. Yeah, we know about that. It doesn't necessarily mean they're bad. It doesn't necessarily mean they're bad. They're looking for work, and they could be good. But do your research even on an out-of-state, out-of-community roofer if you need that. Do your research. I get it. It's probably cheap. I get it. We all want to save some money, but are they legit? Are they going to do the work? Or are they going to, we need half down now so we can order the materials, and then they're gone, you know? And it might be intermixed. There might be good, there might be bad, but get some help as it relates to that. Talk to people. Make sure they're legitimate. Get their license number, all of those kinds of things. So just make sure, especially home repair, contractor kinds of things, that you know who you're dealing with there. Here's a money drain case. Mrs. B is an 87-year-old woman living in her own home. A serious leak develops in her kitchen pipes. She hires a plumber who runs up the bills, always telling her there's more work needed to be done. When she doesn't pay the inflated bill, now at $20,000, she starts getting threatening phone calls and visits at the doorstep demanding that she pays the money. So she isolates herself out of fear. What should she do? Check the plumber's references and report him or her to the Better Business Bureau. 2, report the threats to the police. 3, file a complaint with the Consumer Protection Bureau and the Federal Trade Commission. 4, call on family and friends for help and support. Or 5, all of the above. All of the above. If I can have you leave here today with one thing, and that is talk to each other. Talk to Horizon. There's so many different resources. Talk to your bank. They see these kinds of things all the time. Identity theft, protecting your identity. Do not give out your Social Security number, credit card number, driver's license number, or anybody else access to your information unless it's legitimate, unless you're working with this particular group or working with the bank. I'm going to just go really quickly through this, and of course you have your handouts and there's other material there. Here's how people steal identity. They steal it with shoulder surfing. So if you're at an ATM, a cash machine, and there's a big line, and they're looking over and they're seeing your code, and if they get I use the cash machines all the time, and I've never had anybody looking over my shoulder or anything like that. So just be careful of that. Dumpster diving. Okay, garbage diving. Do not be throwing out statements in your garbage. Invest in a shredder or take them. A lot of times the bank will have a shred day. And so you've saved, do not be throwing out statements and things of that nature with your account numbers, with Social Security numbers, anything like that. Do not be throwing that out in the garbage. Maybe you can burn it, maybe you can shred it, but do not be throwing that out in the garbage because that's where people will look through. Phishing scams is it's an email or a internet scam where they're looking for asking for verification of things like the IRS to update and verify information, like the phone calls that came that said, hey, this is the clinic, we're looking to update. This is common ways that people steal identity. So use a paper shredder, monitor your bank and credit card statements, see if there's any charges that you just don't look right to you. There's a ID guard stamp. I don't know much about that, but it's out there. There's the phishing scams. Just when in doubt, call the institution, validate what's there. Be aware of the telephone scams. We've talked to that to a great deal today. Be careful with your mail. Don't allow a lot of mail to sit in your mailbox for a long period of time. Otherwise, people will grab it, that kind of a thing. So be careful of that. If you suspect anything, if you're a victim, immediately contact your bank or credit card company, because that seems to be the largest and biggest scenario there where charges might happen. You can file a report with the police. There's a Federal Trade Commission, and there's a web information. There's 800 numbers. You can put, we talked about this earlier, a fraud alert to the credit reporting agencies, which the 3 repositories, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, are the entities that create a credit score. So the top ways to protect yourself, don't isolate yourself. That's the one thing, is do not isolate yourself. Talk about things. Don't make decisions overnight, or immediately. Always say, I got to think about this, and then find out if they want to give you a number and a name to get back to. If they don't, then you're done with them, okay? Shred your receipts, those kinds of things. Be skeptical of unsolicited offers. If someone's calling you and saying, oh, you should do a reverse mortgage and get all this money, well, that's, really? I would say don't do that. It's one thing if you've inquired about it in some way, but often we get involved when someone has called maybe off of TV, but then they get bombarded with telemarketing calls because they called and got some information. So then most of the time people go to the bank and they say, well, yeah, you should probably talk to these guys. And so that's where we typically get involved in that. Protecting loved ones, this is huge. Unusual changes, if you have a loved one that you're kind of keeping track of their financial information, all of that, look for anything that's unusual within that, like unusual withdrawals, different things like that, that you just wouldn't normally see. Ask those questions, especially if it's someone that you kind of are looking after them. But if a person more often than not is seeming more confused, if they look a little bit not the norm, maybe hair not like it used to be, just clothes not quite like they used to be, these are signs, gang. These are signs that they might be susceptible to different things and they might need some more help. So just be aware of that, especially someone that might be a little more timid, a little more afraid than they usually have been. If you discover a caregiver will not allow others access, that's huge. That's a big red flag. Caregivers should allow people to have access to see what's happening and going on. If someone is saying, no, we've got this covered, none of your business, all of that, that's not good. If you see all these sweepstakes, mailings, different things like that, somebody might be kind of hoping for free gifts, free sucker lists, different things like this. Just be aware of that's somebody is just hoping they're going to win because maybe today is my chance. Be aware of that kind of thing. So again, call the bank, call the credit card company if you suspect something, file a report. There's all kinds of services available out there, and so we just want to make you aware of that. The Attorney General's Office, the Better Business Bureau, a whole host of them. So here's some more information. I'm running out of time here today. Be aware, be careful, do your homework, ask for help, be savvy. My dad, 81, just had a guitar he was going to sell, and I'm going to close with this story. It ended up that a gentleman contacted him out of Chicago, and nothing wrong with Chicago. It was a legitimate guitar. It was just an acoustic regular guitar that was old as can be, but it was a collector. And he thought, hey, I'll look to sell it. So there was a guitar dealer in Chicago and thought it would be worth about $8,000. And so the gentleman, another guy called or emailed, it was all through email, said, yes, I'll buy this guitar, I'll wire you the money, and or I'll mail you a check, because I told him don't wire the money, mail it. So he mailed a cashier's check of $16,000. The agreement was for $8,000. So the check came, and my dad emailed him back and said, wait a minute, you sent it for, oh, I made a mistake. Here's a way to send me back $8,000. So my dad never cashed the check, and he wanted to talk to the guy, what was it? It turned out that he said he couldn't hear, and so he never had a chance, didn't want to talk to him or what have you. Well, anyway, make a long story short, he went to the bank, because I told him, go to the bank right away. That is not a legitimate check. It was a fake cashier's check. Well, in the end, he ended up selling his guitar to somebody completely different, but had the whole story, all of that. And so just to do the money trail really quickly, the deal was for $8,000. And by the way, anything at $10,000 or more is required to be reported to the Federal Reserve for wire transfers. So often the scams are under $10,000 if they're asking for a wire. Because if it's over $10,000, it's red flagged and it has to be reviewed. So anyway, this individual, the agreement was $8,000, send $16,000, but it was not a legitimate cashier's check. It was a fraudulent check. But in return, he was like, to my dad, he said, send me $8 back. And then it would have been good money, not the money that came from him. And my dad would have been out $8,000 and the guitar. So it happens, gang. Be careful, be aware. I apologize for running over. Thank you for being here today. You've been very engaged, and I'll be around afterwards if there's any questions.